Hi, welcome back. This is part 8 of my breakdown series by way of Larry Krohn and Bill Church. Now, on this video here, going to get into some of this thing with and there'll be bring up this whole thing with the controversy with the International Association of Canine Professionals. Again, just really the balanced dog training community is like on fire right now. But again, I made these predictions a long time ago as to how it is that things are going to get worse and worse and worse in the dog training community with all this infighting, divisiveness, confusion. And now, again, you're seeing it social media. I mean, again, talk about appearances, this issue about response, appearances, and the lack of, confronting what the real issue is in the dog training world. I talk about what defines training. It follows a path of a intervention, does not follow the path of a learning-based exercise, the way these trainers are marketing it. I said, and again, the issue about dog owners, just how common it is to experience a counterfeit picture of change. Dogs are moving around, looking fantastic, and meanwhile, the relationship isn't getting any better. I understand this is like a package deal. This is so common, and these trainers are playing off a certain relationship dynamics. They're playing off people's emotions. And people buy into it. So again, you can be very, very popular on social media. Meanwhile, ask yourself the question: is the dog training world getting better or worse? It's getting much worse. And these trainers are jumping on each other's podcasts, pumping each other up, patting each other in the back, and not a whisper about confronting the real issue. And that's the reality. So let's play some more of this. I may do this may be the final part here, but again, the purpose of this is get in this. You see how this all kind of these frames up. Just what a mess the dog training world is in, truly. So let's play some more of this.
I wanted to talk about is a lot of times people, they see the world through the eyes, and this goes into what you were talking about wanting to help your friend. There's a couple things there, like there's a thing called unsought diagnosis, right? Where we see a problem and we know how to fix it, and we genuinely want to help somebody else based on what we know, but they never asked us, right? And a lot of times that is met with animosity, just like you met with when you try to help your friend. And so I've always made it a point, I don't help unless somebody has asked me to. And especially once they've asked me to, and then they put money behind that, oh, we're off to the races, dude. Then I will figure this shit out. We're gonna help this person, and not only that, but I owe them the truth.
Sure.
But what I've found,
what's the truth? Okay, the truth is subjective in the dog training community. That's all based on appearances.
Too, is that a lot of people have a lens. And I call it an offense lens, where they walk around the world looking for things to be offended by.
Oh, today, especially.
And I see it in the dog training. I see it all over the world, or all over the place, but especially in the dog training realm. They look at something and they want to be offended by it instead of flipping that lens. And
so this whole thing about offense, talk about how that turns into nothing more than virtue signaling with all these trainers. So I talk about picking the low hanging fruit, okay, things that appear obvious. But then again, if you look at the Jeff Gelman Bonker situation, keep bringing that situation up as an illustration as to confusion. You see offense there, trying to call out Gelman, have him canceled. But then what you saw, and it really illustrates my point, is not just force-free trainers going after Gelman, but balanced dog trainers jumping on that bandwagon as well. The amount of trainers that piled on both force-free and balanced proves my point in terms of confusion. Right here, you have this whole thing with another controversy triggering off over the role of, think about it, what exactly? Punishment, with this association. And look at it. So, but you have to ask, why is it these trainers aren't motivated, in lieu of, in light of all these controversies, why aren't they motivated to actually go deeper and say what's really going on here? Well, I'll tell you why. Okay, they've already crossed the lines. I mean, the reality here is these trainers already made their decision as individuals to just take this superficial idea of what training is and run with it in spite of the problems, in spite of all the, the controversy and the blame shifting on the dogs. They've accepted it. So you talk about, a lie. They've embraced a lie. And when you embrace a lie, what happens? All the bad stuff you're seeing, okay, that's the fallout from embracing a lie. All the bad stuff you're seeing, all the infighting, controversy, blame shifting, this thing on social media right now, these trainers just stepping on each other to try to gain some sort of advantage. And they throw each other under the bus in a heartbeat. Understand this whole thing about loyalty. There's no true friendship or loyalty, because if it's based on a lie, then yeah, there's just that thing about, just throwing each other under the bus in over something minor.
Looking for like an appreciative lens.
Sure.
Or something that you admire, an admiration lens. And so that's another thing that I wrote down here was just people walking around looking for things to be offended by. And sometimes I have to talk to people and be like, man, okay, I get it. What do you like about this? What do you, and so that's, I think, a big problem.
Well, here's the thing. All right, let's look at the Denise Fenzi thing.
Here we go.
Okay, here we go.
No, seriously, because I see people talking about it.
It's been going.
Like, I don't have any personal issues with her. I've never had.
I've never met him. I was looking forward. I told Ivan I was looking forward to watching her.
So this is the trainer whose dogs, died in the vehicle, according to her, when there's an equipment failure and the vehicle overheated and the dogs died. So, but she was scheduled to talk at this, and so she had gone from the balance side of things to the force-free side, and so she was scheduled to talk at this upcoming conference coming up. So she was taken out, okay, by way of this issue, right? And so she was removed. But again, the bigger question is, and I talk about this whole thing because this goes right into everything I've been saying the whole time about balanced dog trainers giving, you see it on their videos all the time, force-free trainers hall pass, like propping them up, saying, well, they're pretty good. And then, a couple of videos later, they're trying to call them out. It doesn't even make sense. Like they're all over the place for a reason. See, that's the way you have to come to it, because they're in agreement. They've built off of the same ideas to what training is. You have to apply critical thinking here. Like you can't call out that which you're in agreement with. It's just a basic principle. This is why, because they're joined at the hip with the force-free trainers. So of course it makes sense to me. So here they have this individual going to show up at this conference to speak. So let's see what Krohn has to say about it.
Dude.
But here's the thing, okay? And again, I'm just going to give my honest opinion. I've given this to several people already that have asked. I don't have a problem with you bringing anyone in to speak at the conference. They've always brought in people from that side of the aisle, right?
So he doesn't have a problem because he calls himself a purely positive, balanced dog trainer. Compromise. Of course he doesn't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
care.
a professional. It's not a balanced.
I don't know if it was so intelligent to make her a keynote speaker. And here's what.
Well, it doesn't make sense to bring her in, but a keynote speaker. Like, it's that whole thing. Like, what is it? Here's the difference. I've said this story several times. When I was in Canada, I was invited to sit alongside, be part of a group that advocated training as a learning-based exercise. I refused. Like, there's the line. Okay, there's no jumping back and forth. Oh, I'll be there, but I won't sit right like with them. I'll kind of be over on this side, and we're kind like, what the heck is that? And this is the problem. People have to come to arrive at this place where they understand what's really going on here with these trainers. Like, they're balanced dog trainers, they're compromised. They're playing both sides of the fence here. They've been doing it since the beginning because they built off of this lie. Okay, so they're in a trap they can't get out of. And so here you have Krohn saying, well, I don't know if, okay.
Why? not because of her training, whatever, right? I don't know how much success she has with what she does. I don't know because I don't follow that world too much. But some of the things that she has
Follow that word. You don't have to follow it when you're part of it. Okay, you don't have to follow it. It's part of what you do, so you don't have to worry about following it. I mean, that's just the reality here.
said are extremely damaging to the balanced side of dog training.
Yes.
Right. The things she has said about e-collars, and they're lies. So there's either one of two things here. Again, and I have no personal beef with this woman, right?
Me neither.
So you have no personal beef with her, but you're calling her out here on this podcast, right? So I mean, you can say whatever you want, but I have no personal beef. But let's talk about what I think about it right now.
There's either one or two ways. Either you don't know what you're talking about at all, which means people put a lot of trust in you and you don't have the knowledge that people think you have, or you're lying. Which one is it?
So he's talking about her idea about remote. But here's the problem I have. Okay, Krohn doesn't know either. Okay, if you go watch, I'd encourage you to go watch the seminar video I put out, part of my Flipping the Script series, where he's using a remote collar for a dog that is assessed as aggressive, and he's standing out talking to these people in the seminar, standing away from the owner. The owner is getting the dog on a leash. You'll see her behind a half door. She's kind of left out in the wind. Okay, and then it's like a show, right? And she brings this dog out. This dog is pulling out at the end of this longer leash, expressing control, manifesting. This dog barking and going on. There's other dogs, present, and this dog is just triggered off and going. And he's not doing it. He's just standing there. He's talking. And then at a certain point, after this dog's already expressing control at that level, it's manifesting. Then he starts, having her hit the button of the remote collar. Doesn't even make sense. I talk about this whole thing. If you just apply critical thinking, I mean, in fact, I called the video like finding the working level in the confusion of balanced dog training. What's the working level? You talk about remote collars, talk about the role of a device in relation to, influence, right? I talk about the proactive role in terms of how it's engaging a dog's state of mind, but it's got to make sense to the dog. Clarity through a interaction-based method. That's not part of what balanced dog training represents. But if you watch that video, and then because he's delayed, because it doesn't correspond to being dialed into a dog's state of mind relationship that way, this dog is expressing control, then you start hitting that button. Well, it just makes sense. Of course, you got to dial the stupid thing up. This dog is just blowing it off. You got to keep, because you're not dialed in. So for him to try to criticize or critique this individual based on the role of remote collars is ridiculous. And this is a guy that wrote a book about remote collars. But see, this is the confusion of balanced dog training. No wonder the devices are being banned. Okay? I mean, because they can't reconcile their role within a process, okay, that you can't bring influence into it the way that they want to, right? It doesn't even reconcile based on their idea what training is. They can't justify it. If you go watch a Jamie Penrith, video I put out where he goes on Good Morning Britain and he's trying to debate a force-free person about remote collar, you'll see that interview build up to the point where he's challenged. He's just looking like, I mean, even the hosts say we're not convinced. So it's ridiculous. Trainers can't justify it because they say for some dogs. But here's the point. I talk about, the role of influence, okay, how it's reconciled properly, dialed in. That's not what this is. So here he is trying to, call out her, and it's total hypocrisy.
Because the things you've said about e-collars, something to the fact, and again, this was something Dylan exposed, but he's always the bad guy, right? Like, why isn't anyone else ever held accountable? Why are everyone allowed to get away with this stuff?
Why aren't we having these conversations?
Get away with it? I said the reason force-free trainers have the high ground is based on what this ideology, which balanced dog trainers have bought into the lie. It's based on what it represents. You talk about choices, free will, okay, how they're engaging relationship problem. You have to apply critical thinking here. To how they can get away with it. Of course they're going to get away with it. They're not just going to get away with it. They have the high ground, okay, based on what that idea represents.
Sensations,
Right. Like before someone said you're going to be the keynote speaker, shouldn't you look at that shit? Like that's Zach George kind of shit you're saying.
Zach George, I mean, I can't help myself. Here you got Larry Krohn. I put a video about, he has Zach George's record broken for the longest, flexi lead I've ever seen on a video. Go watch it. So it's really rich, understand coming from someone like Larry Krohn and, trying to call out. And so, and here's the crazy thing about all this. So he's saying, why would she be there? He's standing behind Dylan Jones, over calling it the president of this association. And guess who's going to speak as a keynote speaker at the association come up? Larry Krohn. So I'd love to be a fly on the wall, see, considering all these back and forth and everything happening, how this is going to work. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to stop again the series here. This is the best place to stop it on a high note or a low note, however you want to interpret what's going on here. But this is ridiculous. So you can see exactly the state of the dog training world. This is an example of it. There's so much confusion. These trainers are going on these podcasts trying to do what exactly? They can't talk about the real issue. And this whole thing with this association, what's happening right now, it's a prime example of just how bad things are in the dog training world. But apply a little bit of critical thinking here. I mean, balanced dog trainers, they're compromised. They're in a trap. They can't get out of it. And you're seeing it. They're flailing around trying to do what exactly? It's ridiculous. Just the hypocrisy and the confusion. Unbelievable. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.